Okay, and I would love it if you would have your cameras on, because this is going to be somewhat interactive. Like I was saying, I watched Karen's class last evening because I've never taught this exact one before. I always teach the first and the last one of Ignite, but I've never taught this one. And she had another engagement today, so I wanted to make sure that I was worthy. And then I knew even what she talked about. Because all it was on the calendar was contracts. And it's like, okay, well, you get contracts in the buyer and the seller series, and you get contracts other places. So, what is she actually doing? And it turns out it is all about bulletproofing your contracts. So, okay. Each of you tell me, one, introduce yourselves. So everybody knows you. Tell me where you are in the process. Have you met with any clients yet? Have you worked on any contracts? Where do you sit in your real estate career at the moment? And Bryce, since you're on my screen right at the moment, you want to start?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so I am right at the beginning. I signed on last month. So this is my first Ignite class. I did one other Matrix class, but I do potentially have a client in November that is looking to sell. So I'm gonna set them up to get them a checklist for things to do up until that point.
Okay. Okay, cool. And Vicky. Vicky, you're muted.
That space. Oh, I didn't hit the space bar. That's why. Okay, I started May 12th, and I have gone through the Ignites, the 1 through 9s, probably twice, at least twice.
Okay.
Karen's I've gone through probably 3 times because I could probably teach that one now. I'm just kidding.
Good. You want to teach it?
No, I'm just kidding. But I know what she's going to say all the time, so that's good. I have not done any of that elementals. I have not done any of those.
Okay.
I did do an open house with Dana, and I have been working on a customer that I'm ready to present a listing packet to. So I'll be meeting with him and listing that house within 7 days, I believe.
Okay, so you just said listing in 7 days?
Yes.
Okay.
Hopefully that's what I'm hoping. It's a relative, so I'm pushing him. He's older, and I've got him moving now. So the house is all ready. I've met with my to be determined mentor, because I know I don't get a mentor really until after I'm finished with Ignite, but I need one now. So Becky met with me on Friday, and we went through the house together. So I've been working on that and watching out in Bloomfield what else is going on in the market. Another one just went very similar to ours, so I'm keeping my eye on that. And I have another one that I'm working on preparing their house, and giving them the guidance to find vendors along the way to get their house ready. And over the weekend, I had something terrible happened to us. And we were scammed. And last Wednesday, my husband got scammed, and we lost all of our savings account, our life savings. So I am more than determined to get through these houses and sell more. Yeah.
Okay, great. I've got one more person coming in. They were looking to go towards the regional class. So hopefully. Okay, so it sounds like you're doing pretty well on finding houses you can list, which is nice. Yeah, and that's one of, huh?
I'm looking for a buyer for one of those $1 million homes.
Okay, well, and the good thing is buyers for $1 million homes usually are buying with cash. So
I'm gonna find
hopefully-
one.
Yeah, good luck with that. Hey, Dana.
Yes, so I'm
Hi.
Dana, and I started May 4th, and I've just been doing as many classes as I can. I think I jumped on elementals in the middle. I think I have 2 elementals that I need to do, and then I've got everything class-wise finished. I do have a mentor, and I've been doing showings and open houses and final walkthrough and different things with her. I do have a meeting with a potential client next Monday for a listing. Yeah, and I don't know. So I know Vicky, obviously we've done the open house together, and I actually met Bryce the day he signed on with Kim, because I was in your office, Chris. And I don't know, what else you want to know?
That's pretty much it. Just kind of wanted to see, where you were in the process.
I feel like I'm in the very beginning still, but I don't know.
Yeah. Are you guys feeling, relatively confident? Do you think the classes have helped you out?
Do I think the classes have helped? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the classes are helping, except I cannot get through them fast enough. I don't have enough time in the day to get through everything that I need to get through. And I feel like a real established realtor, because I think that's what life is going to be like. But I'm just anxious to get out there and, get some more clients and get some more listings going. I do have people that want to buy, but I know the situation right now. So, I spend a lot of time while I'm in bed. I wake up in the middle of the night and I look at houses, and I just keep looking at houses and saying, oh, that would be good for this one, or that would be good for this one. So it's like I'm living and breathing real estate right now.
Okay. Well, and did you hear my little tip about watching the classes? You can speed them up.
Yes. Yes. Because sometimes it's a lot of talk, a lot of chit chat.
Right. Well, and I've also, learned that our brains can process things a lot faster than people can speak.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got somebody. Hang on just a second, and there we go. Hi, Erin.
Hi, I'm so sorry.
So now you get to go this on your own. So what we were doing
Okay.
was, so I'm Chris Whitus. Have I met you?
I don't think so.
And which office are you with?
I'm going to be in the West office. I just started last week, so I'm not very far along. I'm supposed to be going in tomorrow to meet with Abby.
Okay, great. So that kind of answers what we were going through was, where are you in the process? Do you have any clients that you're working with?
Right.
Do you have any listings, contracts, things like that, that you're getting ready to do. So at this point, you're just
I'm
pretty much-
I literally just told everybody that I'm doing this, and yeah, now I'm just starting the process really. So none of that stuff yet.
okay. Okay. So the other ones we have on the class are Vicky Bellisbrook,
Mhm.
Bryce Lowe, and Dana, Dana is the one that you see that looks like a bunch of vegetables.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And they're all with the Brighton office.
Okay. Yep. I think they've been on, I think I was in a Zoom call with most of these guys last week for the buyers class.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great, great. So I am not the one that usually does this class. It's usually Karen Hilbert that that does this class, and it's about bulletproofing your contracts. Which for where a couple people are, this is actually a really, really good spot, a good thing for them to learn, to make sure you've got everything, to make sure that you're writing a good contract, that you're starting a good relationship with your client, that you let the client know, what they need to do and what's expected of them, etc., especially when there's a listing. So I spent last evening, after I got back from being outside, you might see that I have some interesting sunburn marks. I watched her class and took copious notes along the way to make sure I didn't miss anything that she did. Karen. Okay, so Karen will typically do these. So the class from last time, from April 30th, is out on our YouTube channel, so you can always go back and watch that. And I think I'm going to leave it there, just because Karen has 43 years of experience. I mean, she can recite things out of her head. I've been an agent for 7.5 years and have never been nearly as active as she is. So I'm going to say I have it up on her on the technology side. She's definitely the best on what the heck do you do in all these different situations and everything, because she's lived through many more situations than I have. So
We'll
I
cut you some
salute her.
slack today.
How long is the class? It's supposed to be 3 hours.
Okay. So we'll cut you
we'll
some slack.
Hmm?
So we'll cut you some slack today.
Well, thank you. And we'll see how long it takes. So all of the Ignite classes are 3 hours.
Right.
And I know you learned, Aaron, you had registered for the class, and most of the rest of the classes are regional, and the link that you got for that will work for those. But 3 of the Ignites are local, and they'll all be on this same link. So the first one, the middle one, and then the very end one. And so actually you get me on all 3 of those this time. Usually you get me at the beginning, the end, and now you're getting me at the middle too.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready to go?
I think so.
Oops. I can't hear you. You just muted yourself. Aaron, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry, I hit that twice. I'm just switching over to my laptop. So I'm going to hop off this and go on to my laptop just so I don't kill my phone for the next 3 hours.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to share, and we'll go a little bit slow to get started. And as we go along, if you guys have any questions, let me know so we can get them answered, or it's a little bit further along. But so I managed to get this checklist for Karen. As I was watching the thing last night, it's like, oh my God, I need her list. So I sent her a text, and I sent a couple of people that had been in the last class a text saying, do you have these? Because they're very, very useful. And I had also done a cut and paste. So I have a Frankenstein version that I managed to put together, but Karen sent this to me this morning, so I had it. So let's talk about listings, and let's just hang on just a little bit until Erin gets back on with her laptop.
I'm here.
Okay. You're just not showing in my list at the moment. Okay, great, great. You know what? I'm going to move the grid of you guys over to my other screen so I can see you all. Okay. Listing. So right now we know that listings are selling kind of like hotcakes. And it doesn't mean though that we as agents get to be less diligent. So when you're doing a listing, when you're taking a listing, there are things that you really need to do to one, make sure you have the right information for the listing. To make sure you prepare your client to make sure that you've got the right price. So we all know, so right now pretty much everything is selling, and in most cases they're selling over list price. However, I am seeing a little bit of a change just recently. It seems like there's fewer offers for multiple offers rather than 20. There's been like 10. I'm seeing more lowering prices on listings where we weren't seeing much of that for a while. So hopefully it's turning, and it's getting a little bit easier for the buyers. Because oftentimes buyer clients are easier to get than the old ones. Okay, so listing checklist, and I can send these out to you guys also. And she sent me some checklists that another agent out of the Gateway office had sent her, and we'll pop over to those too. Okay, so, and again, ask questions as we go along.
I have one.
Okay.
What is PCD or POD? The third one on the list?
Send the PCD, property condition disclosure.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So pre-listing work. So she just has kind of here a listing, look for the history, an expired or old listing. So that's easy to do. If you know how to do it in Matrix, just go. And if you haven't taken your Matrix classes, it's something you can learn. And, but so if you go and you look for that same address in Matrix, you will see the history. Do you want me to show you some of these things as we go along?
Yes.
I'm a better show person than talking about sometimes. So let me go log into my GRAR. And okay, so the last class, the last of the Ignite classes, what I do that on is GRAR tools, not transaction desk, not Matrix, because you have other classes for those, but some of the other tools that are in there, and some of which we're going to be talking about today. Hang on, let me go log in. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of pop down these and then we'll go and we'll do some exploring and do some looking up this information. So if you have a property that's in an HOA community, you need to find out, one, what is the monthly fee, or is it a yearly fee, or is it a quarterly fee? You need to understand if it's really a condo or a townhouse. I have a listing that's pending just down the street from here now in Eastbrook. They are condos. So the main difference between a condo and a townhouse that I've managed to find, and we have another gentleman joining us, connecting to audio. And then we'll make him answer all the questions. Steve, are you there?
Oh, yes, I'm here.
Okay. So, you're with, okay, so you get to answer all of the questions. I'm Chris Whitus. I am teaching this class today in place of Karen Hilbert, who normally does this. And so some of the questions I ask everybody, introduce yourself, which office are you with, and are you currently working with any clients or working on any contracts or anything at this point?
Am I the only one?
Well, everybody else already did it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Steve Humphrey, I didn't know. Sorry, I got in a little late. No clients at this present time, brand new. Looking forward to take advantage of the training and the information that is provided.
Okay, which office are you with?
The Winton Road.
Okay, so you're with my office.
Yep, your office.
Okay. Oh, yes. I met you
Yes.
last week.
Yes, correct.
You were wearing Kim's glasses.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Last
Okay.
minute thing.
Yes. Okay. So Steve is way newer than any of you.
Okay.
And he has a very good sense of humor. So, okay.
Definitely that.
Yes. So this is the last of the Ignite Sparks. So Ignite Spark, the goal there is to give you the tools, the guts, etc., to get your first appointment. And then it goes into the next section of Ignite is elementals. And the next classes are going to be regional. So hopefully you've registered for those. Did Kim give you that link, Steve?
Yeah, she did. You probably
Okay.
just said need a refresher. So should I stay in this one or go to the one
Oh,
tomorrow?
no, you stay in this one. You can stay in this one. You'll learn from
Okay.
this one, and then you can do it again, and you can do it again, and you can do it again.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
You can't be in too many classes. That's impossible.
Okay.
Okay. So this class, within the Ignite series, there's 3 that are local. The first one, the middle one, this one, and the last one.
Okay.
The last one's going to be on GRAR tools, not transaction desk, not matrix, which you can get classes at GRAR for. But the other Ignite ones are all taught by Zoom and by agents throughout our upstate New York region.
Okay.
Okay, so this class is normally taught by Karen Hilbert. So I did manage to get her list of what she was looking for. We do have a couple that are getting ready kind of to possibly do listings. And the nice thing here is Karen starts out with work for listings. So one of the things that I always tell people is with listings, you need to do most of your work ahead of time. You do a lot of research, a lot of setup, a lot of checking ahead of time in order to get ready for your listing. So where with buyers, it's like, okay, you meet with them, you do your best to understand what they're looking for. And then you're showing them listings, and then, and then it's a hurry up, write an offer, what's the right price, etc. Where, to me with listings, it's, you have a little bit more time and you can breathe a little bit more, but you need to make sure that you do the right things. Okay, so pre-listing work, look for history, information on the listing, and we're going to look at that. Karen tends to use Realist. I use RPR, and so we'll do some looking there. If you have any property that's in an HOA, that has an HOA, you need to check and see what their covenants are. Do they have any special assessments going on? You need to call the property management company and get input from them. And sometimes it's not necessarily apparent that it's an HOA community. One that I had listed earlier this year was, so all single family homes, but they have an HOA. So there is a management company associated with them. And you need to understand what the HOA covers and what the property owner covers. Because those are things that you're going to include when you do the listing. You identify which different things that the property management company takes care of. So I said we would do some of this kind of as we go along. So looking for history and the expired or the old listing. So let me pull over my GRAR. Can you guys see that now?
Mhm.
Okay. So Vicky, are you there?
Yes,
Okay.
I am.
What's the address of the house that you're working on listing?
The address is 35 Michigan Street,
Okay.
Bloomfield, New York.
Oh, in Bloomfield. Okay.
And you can put the zip 14469.
Okay.
It's two-
And I don't need that much.
Okay.
So one of the things you can do first is go to Matrix. So there's a lot of different places where you can find things. And I'm just going to type in 35 Michigan. And this is the speed bar in Matrix. You'll learn how to use it when you take your class, if you haven't yet. And okay, so this is North Tonawanda. So there's not any historical listings sitting out there for that one.
Well, that's in North Tonawanda.
Right. That's what I said. So I didn't find your 35 Michigan Street in Matrix. So it hasn't been listed for Matrix, I think goes back to like 1990 something. So
Okay, so that's why I didn't find it there, right?
not in Matrix, correct.
Okay.
Correct. Actually, here, let me show you an example of something. This is a property that it's currently under contract with one of my clients, and it was a for sale by owner. So it was somebody that he knows that owns it. And he's using me as his agent to work through that. But this is an example of, okay, this is the exact same home. So it was sold, and you'll learn how to do this too. You can change, you can add in columns as you're looking in Matrix. And so it was sold in 2010 for $124,000. But then this person also had it on the market quite a few times. And I was very skeptical when my client came to me and said, hey, I have this listing that I might want to buy. And I said, oh, she's tried to sell it a few times. I'm a little bit scared. But so you can go in and, you can look at the old listings, you can look at the old pictures, you can, see if it was sold before, who bought it, who was the agent. Well, who bought it, but who was their agent. So you can it's always kind of interesting to see when you see another listing come on the market to see if they use the agent that helped them buy it. Let's see. 30. Okay, watch me. I got the number wrong. Okay, this is the house that I sold earlier this year. This is an HOA property. This was my listing 2 or 3 years ago, and I was the agent on both sides. And so you can see who the agent is at the end. You can see the list price, the sales price, etc. So you could go in, you could see all of the pictures. And then this was when I listed it this year, and I was not the buyer's agent this time. But so you can get a lot of good information from that. Okay. So what I normally do and is I look in RPR. So if I go to RPR stands for Realtors Property Resource. And Karen tends to use Realist. They have a lot of the same information in them. But so I'm going to go type in Vicky's home that she's selling, street in Bloomfield. Why am I not finding it?
Put East Bloomfield.
Okay.
There is no more East Bloomfield, but there's been a fight going on, so it's really strange. Put 14443.
14443. I'm still not finding it.
What East? Oh no, okay.
Whoop. Yep, I see what it did. 14443.
Yeah, see if that will take you there. I have to keep jumping back and forth because it's listed differently.
Sometimes I'll go to Google Maps. It's Michigan. There it is right there.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay, so it says that that's the address.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So normally this is where I would go to start. Let's go and just
Why is it saying?
Did you have another one, Vicky, that you were going to do that you're working on?
The other one, but why isn't that one coming up?
I have no idea at the moment. I might be able to figure it out.
21, try 21 Michigan Street. That's my other house.
Okay, we are failing on this one. Let's go to Realist.
So Chris, don't some of those sites, they don't want the street or they don't want things, so the less information you put in, the more chance you have of finding it?
Well, yes, and so with Matrix, definitely. With with RPR has or it should have all of the properties in the country, whether they're for sale or not
Right.
listed. So in most cases there, you need to put in more information.
Okay.
But let's do realist. So Vicky, is Bloomfield in Monroe County?
Hey Corey, how are you?
No, it's Ontario County.
Okay, so we're gonna change the county. And we're going to try our Michigan Street again. Okay, we
That's it.
found it.
Yes.
Okay, so here is your property detail. So Realist has public information in their system where RPR has both public and MLS information. RPR is actually owned by the National Association of Realtors. Okay, so this gives you the information about the property. It's 4 bedrooms, it's 4 baths. Okay, so it was so long ago. They don't have the sales price. It was last sold in 1993. Square footage, lot square footage, the year built, the owners, the billing tax address. Okay, so here's, okay, the zip code for the billing zip code is there. So here's the school district information. So the tax ID, and trust me, you don't necessarily have to know the tax ID in order to do your listing, but that is something that goes on the listing, but there's another way to get it. So here's the assessments. So you can see what the assessments are. So, okay, what's the difference between an assessment and an appraisal?
Assessment is used for tax purposes.
Ding, ding, yes. Yep. Very many people get confused. So here the assessed value's been the same for the last 3 years. The market value they're showing as they believe it to be $122,340.
And
So
you know,
Mhm.
I
Yep.
received a letter yesterday from the owner
Mhm.
that said, he brought me the new assessed value. And
Okay,
then for 2021, it's assessed at 135.
okay. And so whenever I do a listing,
Mhm.
I don't get the assessed value from here. That's going to
Okay.
be another one of the things as we go along, Karen's list. We'll talk about where you should get that. So yes, that's great information. But you always want to double check it yourself. And so then here's the characteristics of the land. It's a single family residential. So a lot of information is here for you. One of the other things Karen talks about is looking to see if it is in a flood zone. And I'm going to fumble around here a little bit because I don't use Realist a whole lot. But here, down at the very bottom is Realist has an estimated value of 155,000 with a range of 130 to 180. That to me is important in your initial discussions with your sellers. And okay, so let me go back. Okay, so here's a property map. Let's see if I can open it up. And I do apologize that I'm struggling a little bit with Realist because, as I said, I don't really use Realist a whole lot. Go back. Okay, so here's the map. And one of the things that Karen says to make sure that you look for is whether it is in a flood zone. And I'm looking to see where that is.
Would it be the layers on the top
It is.
left? The second one in.
They're showing, okay. It showed me boundaries. And it's like, okay. So we're going to select flood zone. Thank you. Use control plus click to see flood data. Control click. I don't know what control click is. Okay. So we have to make it a little bit smaller in order to see what we're looking for. So it's going to show us, here's where the property is, and here's your key to what these different colors are. And so, okay, so the orange, which is kind of prevalent there. Okay, this is the first one we want to see. We're in a nice little light teal that's undetermined. So it doesn't identify it as being in a floodplain. And the reason this is important is people have to get flood insurance, and flood insurance costs a lot of money. If they're in a flood zone, they have to get flood insurance. So you might want to ask your seller about that, but you also want to have looked it up ahead of time. Okay. So I'm going to pop out of Realist again. Okay, so we just found some information for looking for history. We talked about the HOA or property management company if you have a condo or townhouse. So then she has this isn't necessarily in any specific order, but these are things that you need to make sure that you do. Ensure that the property agent and agency and franchise disclosures have been given in writing and are signed and dated. And so then I'll talk about the PCD and the forms. So the different disclosures that you need to have signed at first substantive contact, which I think you all have heard that in your, hopefully you heard that in your 75-hour class, that disclosures are to be reviewed and signed right away when you meet somebody. So those are going to be your agency disclosure and your franchise disclosure. So your franchise, that one's specific to Keller Williams. There is a fair housing disclosure that was new the middle of last year. So those need to be reviewed and signed by your clients. COVID disclosure is out there and available for you, but according to NYSAR just a couple weeks ago, we don't need that anymore. It just basically says, that COVID is happening, there's a chance that you could get infected and to be careful. And so listening to Karen's last night, what she does is she takes 2 copies of these documents with her, because you're supposed to leave them in writing for your clients. And so she'll have them, review them, sign both of them. And then she takes one with her for her, and she wants to leave one with them for them. What I do is I take them, have them sign them, then I use an app on my phone called Cam Scanner. And for those of you with iPhone, I think you can do the same thing there's a Notes app where you can basically use your camera to take a shot of these documents. And then, so I do that and send them to myself. So I have a copy and my clients have a copy also. Okay. So the PCD I'm going to talk about in a little bit. So one of the things you're going to need to make sure that the seller has an extra front door key, because you're going to be putting that in a lockbox at the front door. So that may be, you know, the first time you meet them, you're going to mention that you need to have a key for me, because sometimes they may have to have a key made. The other thing Karen mentioned is she always has an extra key made. So if somebody loses it, she's got it. You know, if it falls out of somebody's hand, goes through the deck, you know, she's still covered. Fill out the listing paperwork to the best of your knowledge. And she mentions a seller net sheet. And we'll go and talk about that. Filling out the profile sheet on Instant Forms. And so let me talk about some of the things that I do up front to get ready. So in the no folder, a few of you don't know about that yet, but that's, I'll just bring it over and show it to you. So in the no folder is a spot where there is a lot of information and documents and things available for you. She mentions having a seller net sheet. And I have one in here under the sales and marketing resources. If you go click in seller net sheet, this is actually the one that I use. And you can download it and use it for yourself. And on here, there's a note as to how I use it. And it's going to pop up. So Karen talked about, you know, making sure that your sellers know that there are certain things that they're going to have to pay for. And those are things that are on this sheet. So you can see along the side, there's the personal attorney's fee, because they're going to have an attorney. And maybe this number is a little bit different than the 450 that I have there. See, I think they're more around 500 at this point. They're going to pay to update the survey. They are going to pay to do an abstract redate. They're going to pay revenue stamps. So it's going to be $4 per thousand of the list price. Transfer fees, tax search. So tax search, whether it's city, county, village, they're going to be paying for that. If they have a mortgage, they're going to have to discharge that. Then there's your brokerage fee. If there's a well or septic system, the seller typically pays for those tests. And so at the end, you have a sales price up at the top. And then with all of these inputs here on what the seller is going to pay for, it will calculate what the seller's anticipated net is going to be. So if we went back to, what did we have for the house that, and this I'll tell you, this is how I use it for my first discussion with the seller. So that house that we talked about that Vicky's going to be listing, I think Realist said that they thought that the value was $155,000. And then they had a range from 130,000 to 180,000. And so those are my three main pieces in here. And so my discussion with the seller is, okay, I haven't seen your house yet, but this value is the value that one of the systems that I use gives to your house. But then it also gives me a range from here to here. And so the correct listing price is probably in that range. And then it's like, okay, how do you figure out what that is? If you say, think of your house on a scale of 1 to 10. If your house is a 1 to 3, we're probably going to need to list it for about this amount. If it's a 10 and it's beautiful and awesome and everything is up to date, we can probably list it closer to this amount. Okay. And then, so what's kind of in the middle, let's say 142. And 168. So this is just a nice one. It's a nice tool to have a discussion point about what is the right price. And down at the bottom, it is going to calculate, this is what they would potentially walk away with. These are estimated amounts that they would walk away with. Okay, if they don't have a mortgage, if they do have a mortgage, you can fill that in. But it gives them an idea of what they're going to get and gives you a lot of talking points. So anyway, that document is in the know folder. You can download it and use it as yours.
Where do we find the in the know? I know
Okay,
I've
so
seen
the
it.
in the know folder. Okay, so, okay. Was that Vicky?
Yes,
Okay, so that document that I gave you
document you gave me.
tells you how to get to lots of things.
Oh, yes, that's where I
Okay,
saw it.
so I just put it in the chat.
Okay, I have it in my folder.
Okay, perfect. But so this is it, in the chat. I gave you the link to get to the in the know folder. Just bookmark that. There's a lot of information there. And there is a website being worked on that Abby Theron's working on. And it's going to give you a one place to go, and we'll have links and things. And what it's going to do is it'll link to a lot of things in the know folder. But so Seller Net Sheet is in the sales and marketing tools, and it gives you, talking points and something to lead with your client. And it's a realistic view of this is what the listing price should be. Okay.
So is that something that is something you should have in front of you when you're meeting, right? And show it to them?
Yes, I always do. Yep. And that's also, how I, put in perspective, this is basically our price range.
Mm-hmm.
And normally I get that price range off of RPR. Let me go back to RPR and try that again. But basically I get the same information from either one. Oh, look, there it is right there. Sometimes typing less is more. Thank you, Dana. So this is the tool I typically use. And so both of them have the history information. Now this one gives an entirely different view of what the price should be. I tend to agree with RPR more than I agree with Realist.
This is RPR, right?
This is RPR.
This is the one that I've been using.
Yes, yes, yes. So RPR would tell you for that middle value, 123,000. Lower value, 107,000 up to 139,000. And also has a level of confidence. So this one is an 80% level of confidence on the price. And as I said, RPR is owned by the National Association of Realtors, uses both public information and listing information. And so here's the property facts, the schools, livability index. There's all kinds of information in here. So interior features, the same types of things that you can find in Realist. So just know that you have more than one tool to get a lot of information from. Owner facts, legal description, tax information. And if it had been listed, so here's your historical records for the property. If it had been listed, I would be able to find those historical records here. And I often will bring them up and look at the pictures side by side.
Is there anything in there?
Not in this one, no.
Yeah.
But if I go home, let's see, okay, 48. Let me go back to that one that I showed you, Bristol U Drive. Just so you can see some. Okay, so here's the last listing. Okay, so here's the map. Here's where it is. My updates, historical records for the property. So it shows those last two listings. And I can go in and I can compare the records. And so I can see, and here's the photos. So I can go through and it's like, okay, did anybody do anything in the kitchen? You know, so just kind of pop through and say, oh, let's see. Let's go find a picture that looks kind of like this one. And the house was empty when it was listed on the right-hand side. But, you know, so if you go and you kind of get similar views, you can see, you know, what's been done in the house since then. Okay, so seller net sheet. I think that's really, 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 really important. That's not necessarily listing paperwork, but the seller net sheet is a piece that's going to help you find information. Okay, so the other thing that I do, so she says, fill out the profile sheet in Instanet Forms. So I do that. And so that is the MLS input sheet. And so that, I always say it's the most important document for a listing. And let's just go, and I'll show you an example of one. So, okay, so here's the listing that's down the street, the Eastbrook condominium. So in the forms, here's the input data sheet. You're going to have one for any type of listing, and depending upon the type of listing. So if it's a single, a residential, it's going to have one MLS input sheet. This one is for condos and townhouses, anything that has an HOA, because this asks for the HOA information. There's one for land. But what I do is I will get this document and I will fill it out to the best of my abilities. So this one's a finished one. So it has the list price and everything in it. I'm not going to have that. But you can get all of this information, you know, what's the street name, what's the lot frontage, the lot depth, okay, look up what's the nearest cross street, go to Google Maps, go look it up. You know, whether it's in a village or not. You can, when you create this document, if you create this in Transaction Desk and you go and watch one of my last classes on Transaction Desk, I'll show you a really easy way to do it. And it brings in the information for you from Realist. so that you already have a lot of the information identified. So you have this document. It's going to have, okay, how are you going to, okay, what's your information? What's your lockbox serial number? How are you doing appointments? I'm doing them via showing time. How are we getting the appointments? Showing service. So these are the owners. They had already identified their attorney's name. That's another thing that you're going to want to know. Do your sellers have an attorney that they're going to be working with? And you want to make sure if they have an attorney that it is a real estate attorney. Because if it's not, it's probably not going to be smooth sailing. So then your private remarks, then here's all of the information about the house. And a lot of times you're not going to know a lot of this. So you can look up the information, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, but unless it's a single level house, you don't know if that's on the first floor or the second floor.
Karen, I have a question. So in this house on Michigan Street, it was renovated 3 years ago. Nobody actually lives in there.
Okay.
He moved out in January.
Okay.
The house lists everywhere as 4 bedrooms, 1 bathroom.
Okay.
But when you look in that house, it's not 4 bedrooms like today we think 4 bedrooms are.
Okay.
You know, with 4 separate rooms. What do you do in that case?
So what are you seeing that makes you say it's not really 4 bedrooms?
Okay. When you go up the stairs, which is a new stairwell that was put in, that's not the original stairwell. When you go up there, you can see 1 small room.
Okay.
With a door.
Okay.
And then there's this big area, well, not big, but it's an area. And when you walk through that area, there's like an archway, and then over to the side, there is another door. So you have to go through this archway to get to the other door. So there's 2 rooms with doors, and then this other open space.
Okay.
And I don't remember if there maybe there is a door there. I'm not sure. And then, when you come up at the top of the stairs, this little tiny room. And this is from my family that lived in this house, my father's family. There were 9 kids that grew up in this house. And people would not believe how small it is. I mean, upstairs is, I think, 300 square feet. I think I saw in the MLS. So Becky and I thought what we could list it as. Is that the right thing to do? Because, you know, everything else on here says that it's 4 bedrooms, but it's clearly not 4 bedrooms.
Right. So actually that's a really good question. And that was something that Karen had been asked. Actually, the question that somebody asked in the one that I watched was, does it have to have a closet? And the answer was no, it doesn't have to have a closet. However, it does have to have a door. So, and you can't get into, if they're saying that there's some cases where I've seen where you go through a room with a door and into another room with a door. And sometimes that will be called a bedroom. It's not. You have to be able to get to it from the hall. You can't get to it have to get to it from another bedroom. So what you might do there is, you know, maybe in the remarks, you know, say that the public records show it as 4 bedrooms, but I think I would put it in as what you would really call it, as a bedroom.
Right. That's what I was planning to do. I just want to make sure it's legal to do.
Yeah, well, I would say, you know, identify it, but you know what were called bedrooms at one point may not be anymore.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does it legally have to like have a window as well to be a bedroom? For like fire hazard to escape?
You know what? I am not absolutely sure.
It's okay.
I think it may need to, but I am not absolutely sure. But so anyway, in this document, there's a lot of information that you can fill out, that you can find from public records, from the tax records and things. And you can look it up on, okay, a lot of information. Okay, look it up on Google Maps. You know, is it near a bus line? You know, is it a neighborhood street? You know, what do they have? So I always fill this out to the best of my ability before I go and meet with the clients. And then I will use this. One, they see that I've done work, right? And so I'll use this to say, you know, this is what I was able to find out about your house. You know, so let's get this updated. Or, you know, will you check this out? You know, mark the things that that I don't have, or that was wrong from before, that was wrong from what I had. And then any of the appliances that they plan to leave, you'll want them, you know, want them to be identified here. In this case, this is an HOA, so it identifies that in, you know, things like pets, are pets allowed, you know, what's available, fireplaces, HVAC. A lot of times you can find that in your tax record. So, you know, mark it, and maybe something's changed since then, but you ask the sellers to help you with that. And one of the things I always do is I will go to the tax records and I will look up its current assessed value, and get the current true taxes for the town and county and the school taxes. And if you find that it's in a village, you need to make sure that you add village taxes. For the town, county, school taxes, you can usually find those online. For village taxes, I have found no resource other than call the village and ask them. And you need to ask them the right questions and work down with them until they give you the correct answer. You need the true taxes, not with any exemptions or anything. You need the actual taxes. So you get this document started, you know, ahead of time, and take it with you. And it's pretty impressive. So this is what feeds your listing. All of this information translates into the listing. So if something here isn't right, guess what? Your listing's going to be wrong.
So when you say the true taxes, you're talking about to make sure that you're not getting the star?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. And there may be other exemptions that people have, maybe for military service or veterans or things like that. You know, you just never know, but you want to make sure that you go to the tax portals for each of the counties. And so one place you can get those is when you're in your matrix, you can go to links. And here are links to the different towns, cities, etc. So you can go and look up the property taxes. Some of them are easier to use than others. But so those are two of the things I always take with me when I go and meet a seller the first time, in addition to the disclosures, and have them sign them.
I have a question. Going back to where did I write all those things you wrote down? Where did I write that? Hold on a second. When you were listing about the survey updates, all the things that the seller has to pay for. So who is that? Me that watches when all that stuff gets done?
No, It's typically the attorney that's going to take care of those things.
Okay,
So attorneys, yeah, it's going to be their attorney that does most of them. But that's
Okay.
basically there to let them know what some of the other costs are going to be. That there
Okay, so
is more
that's-
than just your commission.
so there is definitely a reason that you want to have that personal attorney to be a real estate attorney.
Yes. Yes. Now, so another attorney. So estates, properties that are estates. So the owners have passed away or it was in a trust. You're going to want to find out who the attorney for that estate or the trust is. And you're going to want to talk with them because you need to understand who you should have as the owner, as the seller, for your listing. If
So-
somebody has the power of attorney, even though, the owner is living, you want to talk with the attorney to find out exactly how they need to be represented on the listing.
So in my case, I have a brother and sister who have inherited this house.
Okay,
But the sister lives in Chicago.
okay.
I thought that when I do the pre-listing, that I could do it on Zoom. What do I do about her signing things? Because she's in her 80s too. She's not going to be coming here for this.
So you can have things signed, using AuthentiSign.
Okay,
So, you would fill out the paperwork. And again, I'm going to point you towards the transaction desk class that I did.
Okay.
That walks you through the whole process of using transaction desk to create your listing. To fill everything out, to set it up for signing, to send your signing. Even what it looks like on the signing side. So
Okay.
yes, people can, there's really nothing that we do that needs to be signed in person.
Okay.
That makes sense? And what
Yeah,
I'll do is, so if it has to be a Zoom type of thing, I'll have those things that I've already talked about and go through and explain all of them. The other document that's really important is, of course, your exclusive right to sell contract, because that's the actual contract. And that calls out, the commission that they're going to pay and the price and the date. And so some of those things you're not going to have, at your first meeting, but before you have them sign it, you could do a Zoom with them and make sure that they understand everything that's there and that they agree with everything that's there.
now
And
when
if
you
not, then you update it.
okay, when you talked about the estates,
Mhm.
and who the house really belongs to, I think everything that I have seen on the computer and Realist and RPR and the Matrix, everything says that they are the owners. And when the death happens of the person that last owned it and they took over, it's all in there. So I don't need to worry about anything else about with the state, right?
Well, so the owners have passed away.
Yes.
They can't sign anything.
What do you mean? Who can't sign anything? The people that whose name own it now?
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Like that
so
was already
if
taken
it
care of.
is now, if they are now shown as the owners, that's great. You don't have to do anything. But if it's an estate, where this is part of the reckoning of closing the estate out, you need to know how to identify those people that are going to be the signatories.
Okay. In both of my cases, the deaths happened years ago.
Okay.
And all of that legal estate stuff has been done and their names are on the house.
Okay. Okay. So then you don't have to worry about that.
Right, okay.
Okay, so one of the pieces of paperwork, okay. Karen says, send the PCD out ahead of time as it takes time to complete it. The PCD is a property condition disclosure. Condition disclosure is a document that the seller fills out. We, the agents, are not supposed to help them with it. That's forbidden. It's for them. So it identifies things like, you know, how old is the house? How old is the roof? That's usually the most important thing to me. How old is the roof? You know, is there a transferable warranty? But other things that are in there are, you know, are there oil tanks on the property? Have they been leaking? Have, you know, are there any issues? So the seller needs to fill this out so that the buyer knows what they're getting into. And so the property condition disclosure, I always give that to the sellers ahead of time because they may need to go and find some records in order to fill some of it out, in order to fill it out the right way. So that can also be sent out via Authentisign, and it's already templated so that people can, you know, select the right buttons, etc. So they can do that ahead of time prior to signing, you know, your final documentation, your final contract, etc.
Can it be done hard copy though?
Absolutely. Yep. You can give it to them hard copy, and then you would scan it in order to, one, you have to attach the property condition disclosure to the listing in Matrix. And then of course you're going to need to turn it into the office. So yes, if they fill it in person, in a hard copy, you'll scan it in. And okay, so a real estate situation does not require a property condition disclosure, because say if the owners just passed away, the people that are dealing with the estate might not know anything about it. Condos actually do not need a property condition disclosure. There is a document on the front of the property condition disclosure in transaction desk that will explain the situations where you don't need to have one. Okay, so then other things, creating ad copy in the description of the property for the MLS, the public and private remarks. If you are doing delayed showings and or delayed negotiations, there is a document for that. And now pretty much all of us are doing delayed negotiations so that we list the house on, you know, one day, 4, 5, 6 days later, we say that we're reviewing any offers. That does a couple of different things. One, it gives buyers the time to see it. And oftentimes, if it's priced right, results in multiple offers that you then review with your clients at the day and the time that you say that you're going to review them. So any offers should be in prior to that time so that you can look at them, you can summarize them, you can review them for your clients. Now, when you do that, you have to have in both the public and the private remarks, and the private remarks are seen only by agents, not by their clients. The date and time for if there's delayed negotiations, you have to say when those are in both the private and the public remarks. You also, if there's delayed showings for some reason, you have to put those dates in both the public and the private remarks. Other things that you would put in the private remarks are, hang on, there was kind of a list that I wrote down. Oh, also, okay. If it's in a flood zone, you want to put that information in the private remarks. So you've done your due diligence, you found that it is in a flood zone. You need to let the agents know. Now, more information on description of the property that you're going to put in there. I wrote notes from Karen's class, and it's really, really good. One of the things she asked people is, why did they buy the house? What did they love about it? You know, what did they really like about it? And she'll include those types of things in the description of the property, because perhaps the next people will love it for that same reason. Now, one of the things, we cannot put things in the remarks like, call me for an appointment. That's forbidden. You're going to get your hand slapped. The description of the property, you can't talk about families. You can't talk about, you can give facts, but you can't say that this is a great family neighborhood. You can't say things like that because of all of our fair housing rules. So you just want to stay with things that are facts, and you know, tell them what the updates are, and you know, why, you know, it's a great open layout, things like that. Okay. So your marketing plan. So your marketing plan here, what would be things like, okay, so when's the photographer coming? You know, what's going to work for the photographer, because the sellers are going to have the house ready to have pictures taken. So you set up a plan with them of, okay, here's all of the things that need to happen. And okay, do we want to have open houses? Do we want to have a broker's open? So broker's opens are where they're starting up again a little bit, where a lender and the agent team up, and they'll do an open house, but it's just for agents. And oftentimes there's lunch there. If you see brokers opens, and I just have seen a few coming through my email, those are a good thing to go to. One, they're usually at lunchtime. You'll get fed. Two, you're going to meet a loan officer, because they're always going to be there, because they're hoping, you know, to shake hands, etc. You're going to meet other agents. The more people you know and have met, the better your, I'm going to say, the better your transactions are going to go, because you're going to get to know these people. So you can set up with them, okay, this is when we're going to do this. You know, do you want to have an open house? Some people don't really want to do that, and that's fine. Open houses typically don't really often sell the houses, but a lot of agents like doing them, because you can get good leads from doing open houses. And for those of you that are new, one of the things you want to do is watch the Facebook group. And Aaron and Steve, you don't really know about that yet, but you will, because people oftentimes are looking for help with open houses, and you may get to take any of the leads, any of the unrepresented buyers that came through, and see if you can get them to work with you. Some people do so well with that. Okay, verifying true taxes. We already talked about that. So I
have a question. So the loan officer that you're talking about that come to the brokers open, is that somebody that we would invite when we're doing the open house?
No, so the brokers opens are always held by the loan officer and the agent in conjunction.
Right, so if I'm gonna have an open house,
If you're gonna have an open house, you could definitely invite a loan officer if you wanted.
well, how else would I get one there?
You won. So,
Right, so I have to
right,
invite them. Okay,
right. But the broker's open is different than a regular open house.
yes,
So a
I
regular
know.
open house is public, right?
I've been going to a lot of brokers opens and
Mhm,
being served a lot of good lunches lately.
mhm.
And and one realtor thinks that she's seen me around for years.
Yeah, right,
I've only been here a month.
right. So the more people you get to meet, the more houses you get to look at. Ask questions about the houses. If there's something in the style that you haven't seen or you don't know,
Mhm.
ask about it, because, it's good to know more. You're going to be able to help your buyers out more. You're going to be able to help your sellers out more. Um, if you're okay, so I'm going to throw out a thing. So I live in the city. And so one of the things I had to do with my house the last time I did had a roof done was it was a tear off roof. My house dates back to 1900. And so there was a set of cedar shingles that came off, and 2 layers of asphalt. The roofer said he took 8,000 pounds off my house. But one of the things I learned, so when anybody that does the tear off roof in the city, our old houses we just had slats, and then we had the cedar shingles that went over there. Well, if you can look in the attic and you can see sheathing, a plywood sheathing, that the last roof job was a tear off. If what you see through those slats is cedar shingles, you're going to be able to tell your buyers that, oh, okay, the next time you need to roof this, you're going to have to do a tear off roof and it's going to cost you more money, just so that they're aware. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is going to cost them more money. But so the more things that you get accustomed to and learn, the more valuable you're going to be for your clients. Okay, so we talked about verifying true taxes and how you do that. And so monroecounty.gov. So from there, any of the suburbs, you'll be able to get both the county taxes and the school taxes. If you look up a house that's in Rochester, you're going to see that the school taxes are blank. And it's not because we in the city of Rochester don't pay school taxes, we do. But they're not paid to Monroe County. So they are in the Rochester city. So you're just going to have to make sure that you look it up there. And again, I showed you where you can go in Matrix to get to the links to the different tax portals. And nearly all of the counties have portal you can go to. Some of them are way harder to deal with and look up. So one of the things I found, like in Wayne County, they'll show you the actual tax bill, but it's going to have their star exemption figured into it. So you have to kind of do some finagling around to make sure that you get to the true tax amount. Okay, so charging your camera and make sure that the lockbox battery is okay. So that takes into, there's a lot of pieces here. Lock boxes. I use electronic lock boxes, and those are the ones that you buy from GRAR. They're around $100, and I really like using them because it tells me who's been in the house when they got there, and nobody the only people that can open them are those people who have been authorized, that have the Supra app. So some people use combination lock boxes, cheaper, but not as secure, because anybody could be given the combination. However, if you are listing property that's, out kind of in the nether regions, it might be in your best interest to use combination lock boxes, because they may not use the electronic lock boxes. So that's something you might want to think about. Okay, scheduling the photographer. So most agents will use a photographer and get their photos from them. Other agents also, will take their own pictures, and if they're really good, that works out okay. So one of the things you also need to do and spend quite a bit of time is going through those photos, because you want to make sure that you have the photos that are going to best represent the house. The other thing that I do is I will also make sure that they're in a certain order. So I will, pick the ones that I want, and like the outside picture, I'll make A. And, the next picture, so I decide what way I want to proceed through the house. And so I'll just start them with A, B, C, try to make it work out. So we can upload, I think, 50 pictures now. So we do run through the alphabet kind of fast. But have your photos all ready to go ahead of time. And one of the nice things, so back in the day, so now you can put your listing into Matrix and it is saved as incomplete. And so the beauty of that is that, so it stays incomplete for 10 days. Any changes that you make resets the 10 days. The beauty of that is it gives you time to get the photos uploaded and exactly the way that you want them to be. And you can also get your attachments uploaded. So you have to have the property condition disclosure. If you have delayed negotiations or delayed showings, you have to have those uploaded. Lead addendum. So the lead addendum needs to be filled out for anything that is older than 1978, because there will be lead paint, or lead paint would have been used at some point during that time. So those at a minimum are uploaded, and those can all be done ahead of time. It used to be that we did not have that. So we couldn't upload the photos until after we made the listing active. So we have it really, really nice now. You can get prepared, a week or so ahead of time. And honestly, what I do is I'll have everything ready to go the night before. It's sitting in my Matrix, all ready to go. And so wake up 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'll roll over, log into Matrix on my phone, find my listing, and I'll set it to active. So I know it's going active, and that also gives it more time to get out to the third-party sites such as, Zillow, Realist, all these different places that might have it, and it'll get out there a little bit faster. So that's one of the things that I do. The other thing that I'll do is I'll pick my photos and put them into like Google Drive, into a spot where I can let my clients look at them and see if they like the photos that I picked. For my last listing, there was one that she said, you know what, I don't like that one. Can you take that away? And it's like, absolutely. I will get rid of it.
Karen, what about virtual staging?
So virtual staging would be basically part of your pictures, right?
Mhm.
So if you're going to do that, you would want to get that scheduled ahead of time so you can get those photos uploaded. And I think there is something that says that you do need to say, this is virtually staged. So so that they'll know that
Right.
when they go there, that it's not going to look like that.
And that goes in the public remarks.
I'm gonna say you'd be okay with private.
Really?
Hmm.
So how would they know?
Well, hopefully their agent will tell them.
Okay.
I don't think it needs to go into the public remarks.
Okay.
Couldn't you put it on a comment under a photo too? Because you can add comments to each photo.
Yes, absolutely. And that is one of the things I do is I will put a comment on each of the photo that identifies what it is. Thank you for mentioning that. Like on the first picture, I'll put a welcome to this address, and I might give them a little bit more information. And, then I usually do 2 photos of a bedroom. So, I'll identify them as bedroom number 1, bedroom number 1, bedroom number 2, bedroom number 2. Not all of the sites that they're going to be on will show that though.
I actually just looked at a listing, I don't know, a day or 2 ago, Vicky, and it had like a virtual staging of the living room. And then the next picture after that was a picture of the living room, but it was empty, so that they could see what it looked like with furniture in it and then what it looked like empty. And they did that with several other rooms as well.
Right. And I think that's a great idea.
So, I'm trying to decide if the cost of that is worth it.
I don't think the cost is terribly, terribly high. I mean, you're going to have to kind of decide.
Yeah.
I myself have never used virtual staging. I haven't really had problems with selling an empty house.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so this one's probably going to be what, 130 or
I'm
so?
thinking, I think we're thinking 129.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you'll have to decide.
Mm.
Okay. So next thing, ordering signpost installation. So, those nice cross beams that hold the for sale signs. Okay. First thing, if this is your first listing, you need to make sure you order your for sale signs. And I'm going to say, get that order in a couple weeks ahead of time. And there are a list of, there's a couple, well, really probably 3 main sign vendors that are here in Rochester. A couple of them have Keller Williams templates if you want to do more of a generic one. A company that's down the street from here, Pixos Print. A lot of our agents have started using them. They have a designer on staff, and so they've designed signs for them. So there are requirements that you do have to meet. You have to make sure that you identify Keller Williams, that if you put your cell phone on there, it's identified as a C. But I mean, for sale signs don't have a whole lot of rules, but make sure that you've ordered your for sale signs in time. Also, if you're going to use an electronic lockbox, make sure that you get that a couple of weeks ahead of time. You don't have to buy either one of them way ahead of time, because you want to do the red light, green light, save your money until you have to spend it. But you can get your electronic lockbox from GRIR, and then they're going to have to, yeah, I'm even trying to remember when I did these. You do identify them as yours, but you can purchase them through GRIR. And you might want to give them a call and make sure that they do have some in stock. There have been times where they have run out of them. Okay. Post sign installation. There's a couple of companies here in Rochester that install our for sale signs for us. They own the cross beams. They will store the signs for us. The first time, honestly, the first time I saw my first for sale sign was when my client sent me a picture saying it's up. It turns out that the person who was making the signs hadn't gotten mine done, and the sign installer said, hey, I don't have your sign. But turns out he lived really close to the installer, or to the sign maker. So the sign maker, he had run out of ink or something. So he delivered them to the guy's porch and it got put up for me. Great service. It's going to cost you about $30 for putting it up, taking it down. And if you go over 3 months, it's a small charge, but they're wonderful. If the sign happens to fall down, you get in touch with them and say, hey, somebody told me my sign fell down. Would you go and put that back up again?
So when we order those, I ordered my sign. So what do I do with them?
So if you let the installer know that you got them at the office, they'll come and pick them up.
Okay, so I need to call an installer and have them pick up the signs. Okay. Thank you.
Do you have the company's name?
Yeah, so one is Pollock and Sons. And so I'm going to show you a document where this is all
Okay.
in there. It's also in the no folder.
Perfect.
And the other one is, okay, let me go open it. I just want to be fair.
Chris, is that sign company that you mentioned that people are using, and the newer sign company, is that in the no folder too?
Yeah, so it's in that welcome to KWGR, Brighton, the info for you. It's a Google Docs folder.
All right.
Okay, the other one is, it's called Real Estate Sign Installation Services, and people will usually talk about it as being Todd Blaschek. And the price for each one of them is pretty much the same. So you want to make sure that you do that. So I typically, will let them know, a day or two ahead of time that, would you please put up my sign at this address? And it's good to give them the zip code too, just in case there's multiple addresses with that same, multiple places with that same address. And then when it's ready to go off the market, you need to make sure your sign gets off of there by the day of closing, because nobody wants to see your sign on there afterwards. Okay. We've gotten through, let's see, how many pages? We've gone through 1 page. Okay. Hang on, just started doing something funny. Okay. So some of these we've talked about. Are you guys seeing, like, my screen's looking really weird? Okay. Come on. Okay. Day of the listing. So, as I mentioned, some of these things that are here, Karen did say, some of this is a little bit old. The input form can be put on in ahead of time. The supplements can be put in ahead of time. Your photos can all be uploaded ahead of time. So all of that work I've already talked about, you can do ahead of time and just hold it with your listing as incomplete. And then all you have to do as far as the listing is concerned is to say, make it active. So if you're going to do open houses, you create your open house in the MLS, and there are a couple of different types of open houses. One is public and one is MLS only. So the MLS only would be your broker, a broker open, because the public can't see it. Public one would be anybody can come. They don't have to have an agent. So if you and your seller have decided that you're going to do an open house, you would want to identify that in your listing. Creating flyers. Okay, so this list is a little bit old. So this says to use the Michael Lewis Marketing Suite ordering store. We don't have that anymore. You can create your flyers in Command. Or you can create flyers using any tool that you might want. So you're going to, if you want to do flyers, leave them in the house, you can do so. You can create postcards, you can do, whatever it is that you want to have in the house and whatever you've agreed to with your sellers. So you're going to go to the property, you're going to put your lockbox in there, you're going to put your flyers on the counter, you're going to put up, if you're going to have an open house, you can put up a rider that says that there will be an open house on this day, but you would have also had to have ordered a rider from the sign person that says, a certain day. Otherwise, if I do open houses, I don't know if I have any open house riders that say a certain time and a certain day. But I don't want to put a rider on there that just says open house, because guess what? People are going to come up and knock on the door. So if you're going to do that, you want to make sure that you have a rider that matches with the date and time that it's going to be. Also, if there's any other things that you want to make sure of, take off your shoes. It's still the seller's prerogative. Do they want people to wear masks? Leave some masks there. If so, leave a document there that says, please take off your shoes, please wear a mask. Leave some hand sanitizer there. The other thing, if you're going to do an open house, you have to have a copy of the fair housing notice in the house, which that's also on transaction desk. Okay, so you're going to want to post your listing to social media. One of the things that you can do, let me see if I can see that on. I just learned this relatively recently. And I want to see if it'll show on this one. So no, I'm just going to have to tell you, down at the bottom of the listing where there's actions, one of the actions is a link. So you can copy that link and post it on social media, and it'll show the listing from Matrix. So you might have seen a lot of people posting theirs through Zillow or Realtor.com. You can also use Matrix for that. You can use some of the other tools that are in Command. You can create a landing page. for your listing and post that to social media. They look really, really cool. So next one, log into Supra, assign the lockbox to the listing and adjust notifications. So when you have your electronic lockbox, there is and use showing time. So showing time is a tool that we have relatively new in the last couple of years. Good thing is you guys know, you guys have it now. Go into your showing time and say if it's an empty house, like for yours, Vicky, I would set showing time to be a go and show. So it's a courtesy go and show. You would say that you don't want to have overlapping appointments, and those can all be set in showing time. And if you need to know more about it, I talk about it in the last Ignite. And so you can say it's a wonderful thing, because what happens is you'll get a notification. Oh, you have a showing confirmed at this time. You have a showing confirmed at this time. You have a showing confirmed at this time. And it's just magic. If there's any times where you don't want to have it shown, you can block those and restrict them within showing time. So when agents go to make their requests, they will show those as blacked out. So they won't even have a choice of asking you. Okay. Turn in your listing paperwork to the MCA within 48 hours of going live in the MLS. So that's actually a GRAR rule. They could potentially call here and say, hey, do you know about this listing? And if Noelle has to say no, guess what? Somebody might get fined. So it's pretty easy to do listing paperwork into Command, and you'll submit that into Command within 48 hours. Okay, setting up the broker open with your lender. So if you want to do a broker open, you can do that. There's really two reasons that I've seen people do brokers opens other than just feeding you lunch. One is to get feedback from other agents. And one is, two reasons. One is to make sure other agents see it. Maybe they've got people that would be interested. So that's one view. Sometimes you get a couple weeks into it, you don't have the showings you want, and you think it's overpriced, and you want to get feedback from somebody else. So you ask for feedback from those people that come through. And then you've got a tool to talk with your sellers about lowering the price. So those are the main reasons for doing brokers opens that I've seen. This is so weird the way this is showing. Okay, so if people are living in your house and there are showings, you're going to want to tell them, leave the house at least 15 minutes on, be gone from the house at least 15 minutes on either side of showings. Turn on all the lights. Open the curtains, make it show in its best light. Okay. Okay, so then, at the end, once you've sold your house, you review the offers and you accept one. And then if you have multiple offers, you get to call the SAD agents to call their SAD buyers and say, I'm sorry, we didn't, my sellers decided to accept a different offer. Okay, any questions? So we just spent almost 2 hours on listings. Okay, So let's go into closing. So now we're kind of going into either buyer or are you the buyer's agent? Are you the seller's agent? These are things that need to be done. So the accepted contract and the addenda gets emailed to the attorneys and to the lender. Typically the buyer's agent does this. You want to make sure that they do. One way of doing that is ask them to copy you in on it. For a recent one, I didn't see any attorney approvals coming back, and it's like, because she had said, I'll have my office get it out, which, okay, that kind of scares me sometimes. I'll have someone in my office get it out. And that person wasn't doing it themselves. So I sent it out and I copied her on it. After that, I got attorney approvals. So you need to make sure that that's getting done. If you believe it's the buyer's agent's job, just make sure that they're doing it. The earnest money deposit is supposed to be to the office of the seller's agent within 2 days. So it is up to the buyer to make sure that that gets done. You want to have a copy. If your buyer takes it into the office, ask them to give you a copy. The way things work here in Brighton, when Jeremy gets a copy, he will take a shot of it and he's going to send it to both Noel and to the listing agent so that they have a copy. But not everybody does that. One of the things you need to do is have a copy of it to turn in with your paperwork. But you need to make sure that that comes into the office. So you identify, what type of financing did they have? When's the commitment letter due? And I know Karen was saying she has a paper calendar and she'll just start writing all of the dates on it so she can go through them and make sure that everything is done when it needs to be done. So typically commitments, I know when I write an offer, I make the commitments due about a month after the contract. If the commitment isn't done by that time, that is means to cancel a contract. That can be done. If you're the buyer's agent and you're finding that there might be an issue with getting the commitment on time, make sure you talk with the other agent. And it would be good to just create an extension. So do an addendum and say that mortgage commitment will be blah, all other terms and conditions apply. The approval, attorney approval letters are due in 3 days. If you don't put a date in the offer, it's 3 days. We're not supposed to make that be less than 3 days. You need to make sure that those come in and see if there's anything special that the attorneys wrote to each other. So basically, hopefully they're saying that they accept the contract as it is written. If there's a property inspection, that needs to get ordered by the buyer. And usually property inspection is done within 5 to 7 days. Oftentimes now they're waived. So if a property inspection is ordered, the buyer's agent will help their client make the inspection time, and it has to be cleared with the seller also. If there is an inspection, you need to remove the inspection, and you're the buyer's agent. You need to provide a removal of the inspection contingencies. And there's 2 different documents out there. One is the buyer's removal of inspection contingency. One is of conditional. So if there are repair items that are required, it's conditional. And you have to, the way that I do it is I will make a list of these are the things that are needed. And then I'll take and create like a Word document that gives a little bit more information, and I'll snip out the piece from the property inspection document that gives the information on it. So I get the inspector's words on there. And then I'll just have it have the same number that I have on the conditional release. And so that bigger document goes to the seller so that they can see what the issues were. The seller then has to sign off and agree to it. So that's another, if it's conditional, that's another negotiation point. If it's just the buyer and they say, yep, they're all happy with everything, they just sign off on it. Now, actually, there's a lot of different contingencies that if you look at the contingency release form, there's a lot of different contingencies on there. One of them is for mortgage commitment. So when, as a buyer's agent, your client receives their mortgage commitment, you need to provide that document back to the buyer's agent or back to the seller that says we have a sign off on the mortgage commitment. So you may need that multiple copies of that document. Okay. And then complete the green sheet. As Karen mentioned, this is old. You guys don't even know what a green sheet is. So it used to be the way that we identified to the MCA, the accounting department, exactly what was owed to us. Now, all of that is part of the process in Command. So we upload our documents, we identify the offer, we fill in or complete the commission section. And the commission section takes place of the green sheet that we used to do. Okay. So contract checklist. Verify that the bank application has been made. So there's an offer. Even though the buyer has been pre-qualified, now that they have a house that they're buying, they have to apply for their mortgage. And they're supposed to do that really, really quickly. So you just need to make sure that that indeed has been done, because otherwise that's going to delay everything. Part of that then, the mortgage commitment period, some of the things that are going to happen is the appraisal is going to be ordered by the lender. And the appraiser is going to get back to you as the listing agent to verify that they can get into the house and to verify that the time is okay. So if you're the listing agent and you haven't heard that from an appraiser, you need to find out what's going on with that. It should be done within a week, no longer than 2 weeks. Attend the appraisal. So that is okay. A lot of agents do that, and it's actually not a bad idea to meet the appraiser there. You know, identify, bring along recent improvements. Other things that appraisers have been interested in is knowing if there were multiple offers and what was the range of the offers. So once there's a commitment, so sale pending, rider placed on the sign, and change your status in the MLS. So there are, and these get kind of confusing. So there's active, there's under contract, continue to show. So that's a C. Then there's an under contract. So my order of doing things is right away. So I have active. We've accepted an offer. I convert it to a C. Then once I have the attorney approval, I set it to a U, under contract. Even though once both your buyer and seller have signed the document, it is under contract. It is a contract. However, attorneys can disapprove contracts for no reason at all. So I will wait until I get the attorney approvals to set it to a U status. Now, the P status, pending, is basically where pretty much all of us use it, is that the property inspection has cleared. There's been the property inspection contingency release, either conditional or not. And if it is conditional, it's been accepted by the seller. At that point, you can consider it to be pending because you're further along the way. And so sale pending rider placed on the sign, change the status in the MLS. If there are any lender repairs, so it's possible that during the appraisal, the lender finds some things that need to be repaired in the house. And depending upon what's written in the offer, so in the mortgage contingency, there's an amount in there that says how much the seller will be responsible for any lender required repairs. If you have an FHA mortgage, if your buyer has an FHA mortgage, if there's missing railings or any health and safety issues, they are going to require that those are corrected prior to closing. With a conventional, there's less likely to be issues, but so after the appraisal, there may be some repairs that are required that the seller needs to do. And then here, complete the bank repairs properly so that the appraiser can approve. If you are in a place that has a septic or well inspection, that needs to be ordered. And oftentimes the seller would pay for it. Current times now, oftentimes the buyer will pay for it, but you want to make sure that there is a septic and or well inspection if you have a septic on the property or a well on the property. Those need to be done. And then put a sold rider on your sign after the commitment letter is received, because at that point you're pretty much hopefully smooth sailing. Now let's see if I can get this to read right. Okay. Okay, so next, verify that the insurance, the homeowner's insurance and or flood insurance has been ordered, and find out, who that's been ordered with. Make sure that everyone knows the closing date. So the closing date that is identified in the offer is an on or before. It's very rarely the actual closing date. One of the things that I've learned as a lister is oftentimes nobody tells me. It's totally amazing that, the closing date isn't actually shared with the listing side, which is kind of strange. But so you need to make sure that you're on top of that and checking on that. The listing, the owners can do their paperwork ahead of time. So oftentimes at the closing, the only people that are there are the buyers. And so once there's a closing, you're going to do a final walkthrough. And in the offer, it says 24 to 48 hours ahead of time. This is important to do with your buyers. You want to make sure that the house is as you expect it to be. If there were any repairs that were required, you want to make sure that those were done. Okay, she says, don't forget to read the meters. Also in the no folder, there is this document, Jessica Woons put it together last year. It's under, okay, let me throw this in here. It's under the KW documents, and it is called a final walkthrough. And it is a Word format so that you can go in and you can update this and make it work for your house. It has, okay, the date, the buyers, the address, the sellers. And so here, this is set up so any personal property that should be left with a house, you can put the list in here. So it's personalized, it's customized for each particular house. And you'll want to take out the things that don't make any sense, you know, for the house. And then it has a spot for the meter readings for you. And you can always take a picture. And I would also suggest taking a picture because, okay, so I don't know about you guys, but sometimes reading a meter is a little tough. So taking a picture is always good in addition to getting the meter read. So that document's there, so download it and then customize it for each walkthrough that you need to do. Remove the riders and the lockbox from the property. So if you look in the closet across the hall from me, you're going to find a whole pile of riders. And those were riders that agents left on the sign. And so when the sign guy brought the signs back, they brought these riders, and most of them don't have names on them, so we don't even know who they belong to. So actually, if you need a rider, and go look in the closet across the hall from me, and you might be able to find what you need, as long as it doesn't have somebody else's name on it. So you would want to get the lockbox from the property and, you know, let your sign guy to take the post down. So the lockbox, and one of the things you have to do is make sure that keys are transferred. So the seller's attorney, by all rights, should have the key. One of the things Karen talked about was she will take a key and she'll hide it on the property in a baggie, so that she can always say, this is where the key is. What I typically do is when, and I hope this is copacetic, because this is what I've always been asked to do, is when the buyer's agent, when they do the walkthrough, I tell them, okay, you take the key and give it to your buyers at closing. And then any of the other keys would be with the seller, with the seller's attorney. So how are you guys doing? We've got like 40 minutes left. Are you guys good? Are you guys good for another 40 minutes?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So now we go into the documents and the contracts. All pages need to be filled out completely and signed or initialed where indicated. Now, when you use Transaction Desk, as long as you have your contacts in there and they're identified with the right roles, anything that's a form, where a form is a spot that has a fillable field in it, it's actually going to identify those spots for you for a good portion of the forms. But you want to make sure that all of those are done, because guess what? If you turn them into the office and you don't have an initial in a spot where you're supposed to have an initial, it's going to get turned back and you'll need to get that done. Explain the paragraph, discuss paragraph explaining the obligation to the lister after the contract ends. I'm not sure exactly what she's referring to here. I guess I should have listened better at that point. Okay, so your addendums for the purchase contract, you need to, and also for listing. So depending upon which side you're on. So for a listing, you're going to have a lead-based paint addendum, potentially. You're going to have a property condition disclosure in most cases. You're going to have your agency disclosure, any of those other disclosures that you've had signed, the fair housing, the franchise addendum. They all need to be uploaded into the system for turning into the office. Some of the things that you might want to have on your listing, if there's, and I've done this oftentimes, if there's any deed restrictions, or if somebody has an old survey, or there were a bunch of updates to the house, I will get those from the listing owner and I'll scan them and I'll attach them to the listing. So I'm kind of going back and forth now between, you know, getting stuff to the office and not, but these are some of the things that you can include with your listing, and they're very, very appreciated. So also for your listing, if you have a rented property, there is what I call a rent roll. So it's a rental addenda, and it has who are your renters, what type of lease do they have, you know, was there a security deposit? So a lot of information that's there, and that's one of the things that the buyer will sign off on. So you want to upload that with your listing if it's an investment property. And here, so survey, if a seller has it and you wish to supply for informational purposes, a lot of time people are really, really interested on, you know, where really are the property lines. So, and we talked about this, if the listing is an estate, ask for a copy of the signed executor appointment. If the listing paperwork is signed by a power of attorney, ask for a copy of that. Make sure that you know who the signatories need to be and how they need to be identified. And the attorney will tell you exactly the right wording to use. And so you'll want to let the person that's signing know that this is what your signature needs to look like. And also, I would put in the private remarks that this person has power of attorney, or so that the buyer's agent knows what's going on there. Ask the seller if they have any permits or certificates of compliance. Okay, certificates of compliance and permits. When something is done to a house, especially to the outside, they are supposed to get a permit from the town. When it is completed, the town is, in most cases, supposed to come and inspect it and provide a certificate of compliance. Town by town, they don't always do it exactly the same way. And one of the things that can happen is a buyer may ask for a permit or certificate of compliance for something that hasn't been done before, that hadn't been done. And if that is the case, the seller kind of needs to have that done, or they need to counter it. I had a situation where that listing I was selling looked like a ranch from the front, but it dropped down in the back, and the basement had been built when it was built as livable space, to the point there's a fireplace downstairs, and full windows and a patio, and then there was almost a little in-law suite, not with a full kitchen attached to it. Well, the people that bought it because their mother, her mother, I think, was moving in with them. And she was going to take the master suite that was upstairs, up on the first floor. And so they wanted a certificate of compliance for the lower floor. This was in Webster. When I talked with the town person, he said, you know, back then there were no such things. So they did come out and they did do an inspection. My client, all they had to do was to add a vent to the outside of the house from the shower that was in the bathroom. But these people were going to basically, you know, have their master suite downstairs. So they wanted to make sure that it was all compliant. Okay, keep track of dates. Watch expiration dates. So if it's a listing, watch your expiration date. Okay, today's world, that not very many things expire, but that's always possible. You know, if you have a buyer, make sure you know all of the dates. You know, when is the attorney approval supposed to be in? When should you have the mortgage commitment? When's the property inspection going to be done? When's closing supposed to be, so that you can keep track and check on them. Make sure you don't leave anybody kind of out there wondering what's going on. So we talked about the seller's net sheet and how to do that, how I do that with the one that that I use. Okay, hang on. Okay, so now we're getting into presenting offers. You want to make sure that you review the offer or offers that you have. And, you know, make sure you understand the terms and conditions that, that are there. So if you're doing multiple offers, you're going to want to be able to compare them against each other. And in the sales and marketing documents, there's a couple of different spreadsheets that you can use. You can also use functionality within Command to do that. So I, as an agent, will always look at things ahead of time and get them summarized. So my sellers don't have to spend a lot of time, you know, going through the entire document. And, you know, you could print them out and then highlight the pieces that you identified. Okay, prepare sellers as to what to expect during the inspections requested. So the inspector, the licensed inspector, is going to go into the attic. If they ask for radon testing, windows and doors need to be closed for 24 hours ahead of time. And they're going to have to be closed, well, within reason. You can go in and out for the 48 hours during the test period. Pest inspection. Okay, they're not done here a whole lot, but, you know, prepare them to know that, okay, the inspector is going to take the front panel off of your furnace. They're going to be, you know, they're going to check things. They're not going to do anything destructive, though. So just let them know what's going on. Make sure they know about the appraisal appointment. Keep the seller up to date as to all dates being on target weekly. So regardless of which side that you have, make sure everybody keeps up to date, gets their stuff done. And here, this is focused more towards the listing. Stay in communication with the buyer's agent to make sure that everything's done in time. So it doesn't matter what side of the contract you're on, you have the obligation as a listing or selling agent to be aware of the dates in the contract and to meet those dates to bring a contract to closing. Because guess what? We as real estate agents, until we get to closing, we don't get paid. So the more communicative we can be with everybody and work together, the better off we are. And in the end, we get paid. Okay, so what does she have here? Okay, more on Bulletproof. Purchase offers. Make sure you've done a thorough buyer consultation before showing houses. Review the procedures and the timeframes of buying a home. You know, what they need to know, you know, that they're going to need an attorney. And again, real estate attorney. They might have an attorney that did their wills, but unless they know real estate, and get somebody else. Ask them to get somebody else. Oftentimes, if the buyers have a certain lender that they're going through, they can ask their lender who the lender uses as their attorney, and oftentimes the attorney will give them a reduced rate. So that's something to know. Inspection research, you know, the money needed to buy a home, about home warranties. You know, what the heck is a home warranty? And so we now have a partnership with American. Hang on, I need to get the name right. So it's in the know folder under ancillary services, America's Preferred Home Warranty. They are a partner. And if you want to know more about home warranties, they've given us access to a whole bunch of videos that you can find in our YouTube channel. And those of you that haven't had the appointments with either Abby or myself yet, you'll learn about where the channel is. So they gave us a lot of great information, so you can know and understand more. You know, they are going to need money to buy the home. It's more than just their down payment. There's other things that are required. You know, so all of the different things that go into buying a home. So these are, you're going to get a lot of information from the buyer series part 1, where Kaylee walks you through, you know, working with buyers and how all of this works. Okay, so as a buyer's agent, make sure you have a good pre-qualification letter with a bank that you're comfortable with. And I'm going to say, if somebody has a pre-qual with Quicken Loans, ask them to get pre-qualified with a local lender. They'll do much, much better. Some people, yeah, I ended up working recently with a not local lender, and there was a lot of things my buyer and myself had to do that we shouldn't had to have done. In the end, it closed, but I told my buyer, it's like, okay, if you wouldn't have used them, we wouldn't have had to have gone through these things. So they didn't know the local processes. So know what kind of a mortgage they're getting. Is it conventional? Is it FHA? Is it VA? Is it USDA? You know, what's the interest rate? Talk with the lender. Make sure you understand what is behind the qualification letter, so that you have a good idea of how to deal with your people. So Premium Mortgage has a really nice program. If you have buyers that have 20% down and over a 700 credit score, they can write an offer. Premium will guarantee them as though they are a cash offer. I will also give a shout out. Premium has one of the nicest tools in the world, where if I want to go and write an offer for someone, so I go to their portal and here's my client that's been pre-approved with them. So I can put in the price that I want to have, the taxes, etc. And then it's going to, and the down payment. that we want to try, and it's going to tell me if my client can afford that or not, and whether they can afford the payment with what they've set as their maximum payment, and whether they can afford the closing costs. So you can go and look at the closing costs, and then you can request the pre-qualification letter customized, and it will download a letter for you. I will say that is one of the best things ever. Okay, so now let me see if I can read the rest of this. Okay, dates on the contracts must be met by all parties to the contract. So those dates that are in the contract, you know, get them identified, watch them like a hawk. Because anything that goes past a date could potentially be means to cancel a contract. And, you know, if it's a place where maybe there's a whole bunch of people that might have wanted this house, but they're under contract, and maybe they've had somebody come in and say, hey, this would be much, much better. Don't give them an excuse to cancel a contract. So clear to close from the lender gives the lender the go ahead to schedule a closing date. You want to do that final walkthrough. Make sure there's going to be keys at the closing table. So seller's attorney should have keys. Or as I said, I typically will tell the buyer's attorney, you know, take the key with you and give it to your client at closing. You want to make sure that both sides, whether you're a listing or the buyer, make sure that the utility companies have been contacted. For the seller, make sure that the utility company knows that they're going to be moving. For the buyer, they need to get their services placed in their name. Your buyers also need to make sure to get their insurance. So in order to close, they have to have an insurance rider. And we also have the Oasis Group, which is an insurance broker, which we, Keller Williams, are part owner of. Your clients are absolutely welcome to get a quote from them. They might find that it's better than anything else that they can find, but they don't have to use them. Okay, this is so weird. Okay. Make sure you always have the appropriate addenda to the contract. If there's an FHA mortgage or a VA mortgage, there is a document called the All Parties Agreement that needs to be signed, and it says also that the property needs to appraise at the value that it was sold for. If there's a well or a septic, you have to use the addenda with reasonable dates filled in. You don't just check the box, you fill in the dates. The personal property agreement, you can ask the lender if they want to see the personal property on the addenda or the purchase contract. So personal property versus real property. What's the difference? You guys know? What's a normal stove that you would plug in?
Stove?
Yeah, say well, a stove is actually that is plugged in, that's not built in, is personal property.
Right, it's chattel.
Yes, as is a refrigerator, unless it's built in, like what are they? The big ones.
Like a custom one.
Yeah, custom one. If they are screwed or nailed in, it is part of real property. If they are not, they're plugged in, etc. That is personal property. So dishwashers that are built in, they are real property. That is part of the house. So on my personal property agreement, I always write, if you look at my class, I always write in the things that are really personal property. And then at the bottom, I'll say, the balance of the appliances are built in, and then I'll put real property.
Hmm.
Because things like a disposal, they're not going to be taken out.
Right.
Where personal property is something that could be taken away. Make sure you do the agency disclosure. If there's property inspection, make sure the dates are filled in. And now on the offer, there's actually 2 spots where you identify if you're doing a property inspection or not. One says checks and says property inspection, yes. And then there's another one right before the signature that says property inspection declined. So that's become very, very specific. If you write an offer and your buyers are not doing a property inspection, there is a Keller Williams form that's a property inspection waiver. And you do not need to provide that with an offer, but you do need to provide that to the office. So it basically says that they will not hold us responsible for any issues, that it was their choice. Agricultural district, electric availability, uncapped natural wells, utility surcharges. So there's all kinds of different addendas that are out there. And it's going to be kind of based upon where the place is. Agricultural district basically says, okay, it's a farm, right? So it could be smelly, it could be dusty, it could be noisy. So there's a document that needs to be signed for that. Electric availability, I've never ever used that. That says that electric is available. So these are, so depending, farming areas, you're going to need to do the agricultural district. If it's an undeveloped land, you may have to do some other addendas, such as the electric availability, etc. Wayne County. Oh, she mentions it, Wayne County here, so I'll wait till I get to that. A home warranty, if a home warranty is going to be requested on the home, and who will pay for it. It can be requested. The buyer can pay for it, or they can ask the seller to pay for it. The rented property addendum, as I mentioned earlier, if you have an investment house and there are tenants in the house, you fill out that addendum. Sale and transfer of title. So if your buyer owns a house and they have to sell it in order to buy this house, you have to do the sale and transfer of title contingency addendum. And you fill it out, and it's harder to explain than it is to do when you are in the situation. It says, you know, that your buyer needs to sell their house in order to close on this one. And this is basically the status that it's in. You know, is it listed or not? If not, when's it going to be? You know, is it under contract? If it is, okay, what status is it in the contract? So you can identify to them, you know, where you are in the process. And then along with that, there's some documents that when say if your offer was accepted and it's contingent on the sale and transfer of title, it can be left as active and continue to be shown. And if they have an offer that comes in that they want to take, they can bump you. And so that basically says they come back to you and say you have, well, and you've actually identified up front, it's usually like 2 days to clear this contingency. And, you know, your buyers have the choice of saying, oh, we're not going to be able to do that. Or maybe they are in a status now that says, okay, we don't even need that anymore. We're all good. We're happy. You know, we can remove that contingency so we can keep the house. But if they're not there, they can be bumped. And so their contract then becomes invalid because it was contingent upon the sale and transfer of their house. So those are some of the things. I think some banks, and I think Premium still does, has something called a bridge loan. So if you have somebody that needs to sell their property in order to buy the next one, have them check and see if they can get something like a bridge loan, because then they won't have to do the sale and transfer of title. And when you talk with lenders, talk with them about that, get more information. Wayne County disclosures, anything that you sell in Wayne County, anything that a buyer purchases in Wayne County has to have this disclosure. Whether it's in a town or whether it's on a farm, it has to have a Wayne County disclosure. Part of it, I believe, has to do with Gannett, and part of it is, a lot of it is a very farming county. Okay, so let me see if I can read this right. The Keller Williams franchise agreement, you're going to need to have this completed by your client, and that needs to be provided to the office. It doesn't have to be included with an offer. Escalation. Okay, so today, nearly every offer we write includes an escalation clause. So I describe an escalation clause as being like an eBay bid. This is what I really want to pay, but I'm willing to go to this much, and I'm willing to go in these increments. So it protects your buyer from having to pay too much for the house. And it's yeah, they've become very, very, very common. In the Keller Williams documents, there's a couple of different escalation clause documents. One of them has Karen Hilbert's name on it. That's the one that I use. And then it also includes a right of first refusal, which says that if between the time you accepted the contract and the attorney approval, if the seller got another offer that they wanted to accept because it was higher than what you had, they're going to come back to me and my buyers and let us know what it is and give us the first right to refuse beating that offer. So to keep the contract in play. So that often goes with an escalation clause, because there's a three business day attorney approval. So lots of things could happen along the way. And even though something is under contract, if another contract comes in, it is the obligation to present that other offer to the sellers, even right up to the day of closing. That is an absolute requirement. Doesn't happen terribly often. Some things that buyers might ask is if there is an open house, or there were more showings, the buyer can ask them to cancel a remainder of the showings and open house upon acceptance of the offer. They may or may not allow that. I did a few years ago. I had a deal where my buyer and I happened upon this house that was just listed, and we were looking at another one down the street, and she said, "Oh, can we go look at this one?" I called the listing agent. We went in to look at it. She said, "Oh, I love this house." We wrote an offer. I think that was on a Friday. They accepted it, and there was an open house on Sunday. And, I said, well, would you please, cancel the open house? And, the agent came back and he said, no, my sellers really still want to have it, but come to the open house. And he said, I'd like to meet you. And so he was telling, I walked into the open house with a friend. And when he came to meet me, he goes, okay, I hope you have heard that I've been telling people that this is under contract. So they weren't trying to pull any fast ones on us. The sellers just still wanted to do an open house. Another thing that often happens now is the buyer offers to make up the difference in the appraised value if it comes in under the accepted purchase price. So if they're going to do that, you need to make sure that the buyer has funds in order to do that. So with many things going over list price today, this is always a possibility. So that's another thing that some people are starting to put in offers to make their offer more attractive. Okay, other things, commission statements. For sale by owners, FSBOs. If you are working with someone who is a for sale by owner, I have a current one where my buyer actually found this one, but he wants to work with me. So he's agreed to pay my commission. In most cases, you ask if the owners will pay your commission, and that's what this is set up for. It just identifies that they will pay the agent's commission and identify what that is. So if you have a situation like that, you want to have a commission agreement signed, and they are in the Keller Williams, the KW documents in the no folder. Commission paid on net. So this would be a situation where there's a purchase price and there's seller concessions, where seller concessions could be because this buyer needs some cash in order to close, or possibly there's a bunch of repairs required. And so the net would be the purchase price minus the seller concessions. For example, on this for sale by owner one, my buyer is doing seller concessions to pay for the closing costs. And I said, okay, I'm only going to charge for the commission on the net sale. So if you have cash offers, you want to make sure that you have proof of funds for your buyers. So proof of funds could be a shot from their account. They want to make sure that their account numbers are crossed out, but they need to make sure that they have their name on them to show that they have readily available funds in order to buy the house if they have their cash offer accepted. Something like having them in a 401k, that's not going to work because it's going to take too long to get them out. And it's possible that they can't. So they need to have proof of funds. And it's also possible that they may have to give you proof from a couple of different accounts, and that's okay. With the offer, when you have one of the contingencies in the offer is for cash offers, and you say when you're going to provide them. Today's world, you want to provide the proof of funds when you submit an offer. Nobody's going to want to wait for 5 days or 10 days because they probably got 10 offers that they're looking at, and they want to make sure that, this one's clean. So if you have a cash buyer, make sure you have a proof of funds that you can submit with the offer.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Back to the seller concessions.
Uh-huh.
okay, you mentioned specific things like repairs and things like that, but what about those other things that the sellers are paying for? Are those considered seller concessions as well?
No, no, seller concession is basically cash available to the buyer at closing.
Okay,
Okay. Okay, so. Inspection removals, we talked about just the removal of the inspection when it's okay, and then there's conditional. If you have a conditional, you need to provide the details. And as I mentioned before, this is another negotiating spot. So possibly your seller will say, I'm not going to fix those. You know, they don't have to be done and I'm not going to do them. So it's another spot where you can negotiate, and sometimes things could fall apart. Okay, the seller's notice to remove the sale and transfer of title. So I mentioned this one where your offer is contingent upon the sale and transfer of the buyer's house. But then another offer comes in and they say, no, I'd really like to take this one because you haven't removed this contingency yet. So I'm going to bump you and let you know that, hey, I've got something else. You need to come back and remove that contingency in order for me to continue on with this deal. And then this other one, notice to preserve the transfer of title contingency. So before a bump notice is cleared. So say if the house sale all happened and your buyer's now all good and happy, there's actually 3 different documents that you could respond to the transfer of title contingency with, and it all depends on what happens. But your buyer could remove that contingency if their house has now been sold and they're all good and happy. Cancellation of contract. So as we said, if dates aren't met, it could cancel a contract. And okay, what the buyer expects as far as deposit return. So buyers are making an earnest deposit, and we have 1 minute left. Do you guys mind if we go a little bit over? Are you okay?
No, we're okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yep, it's fine.
I wasn't quite sure I was going to have all of this, but I guess this is kind of fun. So their deposit return. So the earnest deposit is not a down payment. That's one of the hardest things to explain to a buyer. It is not their down payment. It is money that is going to be put into an account. So say if it's my listing, the deposit check is going to come, it's going to be put in Keller Williams account with Lions National Bank. It's going to sit there until closing. It's brought out and used as part of the closing costs. It might be used towards their down payment, but it's not the down payment. And I usually have to explain that over and over and over again every time I write an offer. But if you read through the offer, the contract document, all over the place, it says, if this doesn't happen, the deposit will be returned. If this doesn't happen, the deposit will be returned. If this doesn't happen, the deposit will be returned. So dates and things like that, the buyer would expect their deposit to be returned. What I explain to my clients is, okay, it's pretty much always going to come back to you if the deal falls apart, except say you got to 2 days before closing, you're the buyer and you decide you don't want the house anymore. Well, guess what? You really owe that deposit to them because you have done nothing but waste their time. So usually at that point, it goes into almost legal proceedings. Because some people still want it back, even though they've wasted people's times. But in most cases, the buyer is going to get their deposit back if the deal falls apart.
So can I ask you, I've been listening and, hearing people talk about when they are trying to decide which one of these offers to take.
Mhm.
And they talk about that earnest deposit
Mhm.
and how, now I can't think of an example, but when they put down an earnest deposit, if they're putting down, would they put down a large amount to outbid somebody else? Is that what's
Mhm.
happening?
It can be. So larger amounts says they have more skin in the game,
Okay,
right? And so if they decide to walk away from it at that very end and they put a $50,000 earnest deposit, they could possibly lose that $50,000.
so somebody who puts that much down in an earnest deposit really wants that house, and they're
Yep.
not really going to walk away.
Yep, you would
Okay.
expect so, yes. And it also has to be, the check that they give has to be cashable now. So it shows that
Right.
they've got money right there now. Some people will, make the amount be what their down payment's going to be. There is no hard and fast rule as to what it should be.
So is that what's happening is they end up possibly getting that deposit back?
If it falls apart. Okay, so that the money that's in the earnest deposit is going to set in, say, Keller Williams bank account until
Right.
closing. It's going to come out and it's going to be used in the accounting sheet for closing.
Mhm.
So if there actually happened to be more money than they needed for closing, yeah, I guess they would get it back.
It would get it back.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine somebody doing that, but yeah, so it's,
so-
yeah.
I think I know somebody who did that. They wanted to show that they really wanted that house, but they wanted to not put that down as a down payment because they wanted to keep it as cash when they had the credit already with the mortgage company.
Okay.
They wanted to keep their cash.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so they lose use of it for a couple of months because it's going
Right.
to sit in that account until they get to closing.
I think actually what they did is they saved it when it came back out and that they were done with their closing and everything. They
Mhm.
then went back to the house and renovated and put in
Okay.
another bathroom. So
Okay.
yeah, I understand now what happened.
Yep.
No,
Okay,
I
the main,
did
go
not
ahead.
understand that before, but I
Okay.
get it now.
Yep, it's more skin in the game. It's one of the terms. So main reason contracts fall apart, inspections. And we know that today a lot of inspections are waived. So other reasons they fall apart is they couldn't get their mortgage, or it was appraised too high and the buyer's not willing to cover the gap, and neither is the seller, so they can't come to a meeting of the mind. So there's lots of different reasons that they could fall apart, and the reasons why probably depend a lot upon market conditions. So her last paragraph, it is important to establish a working relationship with the listing agent. So you're the buyer's agent here. Take time to call a listing agent before writing an offer. Ask what's most important to the agent and to the sellers. Ask them, do you have a closing date that would be perfect in mind? What's going to work best for you? So that you kind of get the upfront scoop. Maybe they'll fall in love with you and be your advocate with the sellers. So build a working relationship with the other agent, and they'll know that you'll communicate through the transaction. Again, so real estate is weird. We compete against each other for listings, right? But once we have the listing, we depend upon every other agent to sell it for us, right? So we have to be very cooperative also. So the more people that you get to know, the better off you're going to be. Build those relationships, you know. Don't be nasty to someone. You know, if you know, use facts, you know, okay, here's the date that was in the offer, you know, where are you with that? And it's like, oh, well, we're not quite there. Well, would you write an extension so that we can get that signed and make it all official? You know, so just make sure that you have a good working relationship and you work through the process with them. Okay, so I'm just about done. That sound good? Where am I going?
Are we gonna get a copy of these?
I can
This
send
list?
these to you, yeah. And so some of these things you've got, and I'm trying to figure out where I put these. Okay, so the last thing she had on here were our listing checklists. And wow, this is so weird. My computer's never done this before. And they weren't the exact newest ones, but they're close enough. So this is the checklist of the documents that are needed by the office. And, you know, it's not a bad idea to keep a copy of this with you so you can see what is it that I have to have. And so we have, these are the required ones. So you're going to have this form, the Keller Williams franchise addendum, your agency disclosure, your fair housing disclosure, COVID disclosure. NISAR says we don't need it anymore. MLS printout. So that comes after, but you need your exclusive right to sell contract, your MLS input sheet, and it's doing the weird things again. Delayed showings and negotiations addendum form. So this will help you kind of work through what is it that you need to have with a listing. Lead compliance addendum, you know, if built prior to 1978, your school, town, and village tax records. And then, so weird, the purchase contract checklist, there's more in here. And if you had the listing, some of these that are identified as required, if you've already submitted them with your listing, the franchise addendum, etc., you don't have to submit them again. Now, property condition disclosure. So you've got a property condition disclosure that is with a listing and your lead addendum. But then both of those are going to be signed by the buyers. So with the purchase paperwork, you provide the ones that are signed and initialed by the buyers. And so you've got the personal property agreement, your all parties agreement. So a lot of, if you use these as kind of a little bit of a crutch of what do I need to have, this will help you out with it. All parties agreement required if an FHA or a VA mortgage, property inspection addendum or waiver, addendum for well and septic system, electric utilities, agricultural uncapped gas, disclosure notice for Wayne County, sale and transfer of title. So then this has the 3 different documents that might go along with that. So there's the bump notice. And then if the buyer says they can remove the bump, you would also have this one. And then if the buyer removes the contingency prior to being served the bump notice, this would be this document. And then you need to provide the earnest deposit check and the attorney approvals. And then if there's a commission agreement. So you can use these to kind of guide you in what documents you need to have. There's also 2 more documents that Karen sent me that I will send to you guys. And so they are provided by another agent. And I haven't had a chance to look at it, but a listing. So this one is a spreadsheet, listing preparation checklist. So these things that we talked about are in here. And so you could use these. And then if there's anything different that you want to do, listing under contract. Okay, the things that you need to do, contract date, close date, contingencies, etc. So Judy, she's one of the agents from the Gateway office, gave these to Karen, and I'll make those available to you too. And then there's also a pending buy checklist. So you can kind of keep a checklist of what you have and what you need for each different transaction. And I'll send those to you so you can use them if you would like. Okay. That's a lot, right?
Yes.
Was it helpful?
Very.
Good.
It will be.
It will be. Well, and the good thing is, so we're recording these, so they're
Yeah.
available. You can always go back to them. And some of the things that you're hearing in multiple classes. You're getting them in the buyer and the seller series, and you're getting them here. So, you know, repeating is going to make them, you know, sink in a little bit more. And oftentimes once you get going, so now, you know, Erin, you're kind of like, oh my, what did I do? You know, once you've gotten a little bit further into the process, if you go and attend the class again, you're going to go, oh, that's what they were talking about. Where now you're just going, what?
Yeah.
What? So it's a process. But the more you take part in things, the more classes you attend, you know, the more you're going to learn, and the more people that you talk with and listen to, you're going to pick up some nugget of information from absolutely everybody that you deal with.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay, so I'm going to let you go. Thank you for joining me today. This was my trial run for this class. I guess I did okay. Thank you to Karen for sharing her list with me. So if you guys have any questions, you know that we're here for you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks for joining.
Bye-bye.
Bye.